He mentioned that when we were out of the country, that Scott's car would be blown up. Sean wanted Scott's friends to be there to see the car get blown up in the driveway.
Ms. Ventura, what do you recall happening at the end of the meeting?
Scott said, "What about my vehicle?" And Sean said, "What vehicle?"
This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me. And, yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love.
Rapper Kid Cudi speaking out after his shocking testimony in Diddy's criminal trial. So does the car firebombing incident help prove the racketeering conspiracy? And drugs, heels, and guns. We're digging deeper into the most talked about exhibits in the music mogul's case. Plus, also this hour, denied. That was the judge's ruling for Jordan Henning's petition to reduce his prison sentence. And before the decision was made, Henning addressed the court about his fetishes. Plus, what's the perfect punctuation to the prosecution's case in chief? We're looking ahead to defendant Karen Reed's retrial. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Friday morning to you. We made it, my friends. TGIF. This is Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and we're not stopping. We got a great show planned for you today, so grab that cup of coffee. We're starting it off as we always do. It's time for my opening statement. Round of applause is right. There was a round of applause in the courtroom when convicted killer Jordan Henning was denied his petition to reduce his prison sentence. What a great decision by the judge. Very smart decision, as the reason for that petition was Mr. Henning's claim that he was the victim of domestic violence at the hands of his wife, Ashley. Pants on fire, Jordan Henning. The judge didn't believe you, the prosecutors didn't believe you, and I certainly don't believe you. You cried like a baby at your trial. But we all saw the video of you shooting and killing your wife, who was beautiful, smart, and more successful than you. So now, crybaby Henning can keep up his lying, crying act in prison for the next 20 years. With the judge's ruling, no brakes on the time for him. And hopefully that ruling will mean something. Hopefully it'll mean something to Ashley Henning's family, who felt that the jury's decision on that manslaughter charge was a miscarriage of justice. And hopefully the Henning children will find some comfort in the pride that they have for their mom and her service to our country. Master Sergeant Ashley Henning, I salute you. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Just to be honest with you, I would have to believe you, sir. And only you, because there is no corroborating testimony in regards to you suffering physical violence. Your mother didn't corroborate. I have not heard anything in addition to today to corroborate.
So court is dark today for the long holiday weekend, but today on Court TV, we are rolling out some unaired footage and looking ahead to the major trials we've got for you. So this will all be happening in our 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. hour. We're going to play the case that I was just going off about, Jordan Henning's hearing, where he was trying to get his prison sentence reduced. So you'll get to see that round of applause for yourself. Now, in our 11 a.m. hour, we're going to look ahead to the trial resuming for defendant Karen Reed in Massachusetts. But this hour, we're talking about Diddy primarily and his federal sex trafficking case. That is our top story. Bombshell new details coming in from rapper Kid Cudi on Thursday. He had a brief relationship with Diddy's longtime girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. And Cudi testified about the music mogul's alleged attempt at revenge on him. He then spoke out on his social media right after he took the stand.
Hey guys, so I just want to say, man, I've been seeing all the love and support, and I just want to say thank you so much, man. People have been hitting me up the past week, just checking in, and even today, and it really means a lot to me, man. You guys are the best. I love y'all. This is a stressful situation. I'm glad it's behind me, and yeah, I love y'all, man. Big love. Go stream Neverland.
So one of the most shocking parts of Cudi's testimony was about his Porsche being torched in the year 2012. And he believes that Diddy was responsible. Look at these pictures here. The jury got to see these photos. They were all admitted into evidence. And Cudi testified saying, quote, "It looks like the top of my Porsche was cut open, and that's where the Molotov cocktail was put in." So, was there an arson that happened here? And if there was, does it help establish the racketeering conspiracy that's being alleged with Sean Diddy Combs? I can't think of a better person to answer these questions than our next guest. He was a former U.S. attorney and also a former state prosecutor. He's in the private sector now. He's a heavy hitter there. Attorney William Ehlenfeld is with us. Always an honor to have you, William. So go back into federal prosecutor mode for us, if you would. Last week, you told us, you said, it's my opinion, they already established the sex trafficking charge with Cassie. Now, here we are a week later. What do you think about the racketeering conspiracy?
Good morning, Julie. Yeah, they've already established count 2 and count 3. So the sex trafficking count and then the prostitution, interstate prostitution count. So focusing now on the racketeering, this evidence that Kid Cudi brought in yesterday through the government's calling him as a witness helps to establish the arson that is alleged as one of many acts that the government has alleged in that racketeering count. They've also alleged kidnapping and bribery and forced labor and sex trafficking and drug distribution. But the arson is a big piece of it. And they offered not only the photographs, but also the testimony of Kid Cudi that he believes that Diddy was responsible for this arson of his Porsche automobile. So yes, there was an arson. Yes, evidence was offered of it. But he had to acknowledge on cross-examination that he didn't actually see Sean Combs commit this arson, and there hasn't been testimony of anyone who actually saw Combs there or that more directly links him to that arson. So I think we might see a little bit more from the government when it comes to that, but it certainly is very valuable evidence for the government because it helps to show the lengths that Combs might go to oversee this racketeering operation, the use of violence, the use of intimidation, the use of acts like this to try to control someone like Cassie Ventura, who Combs believed was in a relationship with Kid Cudi. And in fact, she was. And they got into that as well a little bit. And I think the defense scored some points there when they, on cross-examination, when they asked Cudi about his relationship with Cassie.
William, such excellent, helpful analysis. Thank you for that. I want to play for you a clip. We've married some AI voice technology with the court transcript to try to give our viewers an idea of what's being testified to and how the testimony is going down in this one, where our cameras, unfortunately, aren't allowed to show anything. So this is a clip from when Cassie was on the stand, and she talks about the last meeting where she and Diddy and Kid Cudi were all present.
Did there come a time when you saw Scott again?
Yes.
Where did you see Scott next?
I saw him at the Soho House in Los Angeles. The three of us had a meeting.
Who is the three of us?
Me, Sean, and Scott.
What was the purpose of the meeting?
The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the relationship that we were no longer in.
Ms. Ventura, what do you recall happening at the end of the meeting?
Scott said, "What about my vehicle?" And Sean said, "What vehicle?"
What vehicle? Okay, so Diddy, of course, has never admitted this, William, as you know. He said something, and Cudi related it to the court on Thursday. He said that at one point, he and Diddy saw each other some years later at the Soho House. Diddy was with one of his daughters, and he said, "Man," I'm quoting, "man, I just want to apologize for everything and all that." And then I can't say the word, we'll just say garbage, all that stuff that happened. So William, is that enough for the jury to convince them that this was an arson that Diddy committed, in your opinion?
I don't think they are quite there yet with this evidence. I give the government credit for being able to get all of this in, to be able to convince the judge to allow them to let Cudi sort of speculate almost that Combs was responsible for this. At the same time, as you just relayed, they got in, evidence came in that Combs denied knowing anything about it. So I think there is enough there for the defense, if this is all we hear about the arson, if there's nothing more, and this trial is going to go on for several more weeks, the judge said maybe up until July 4th. So there's a lot more to come. But if we don't hear anything else about this arson, I think the defense has enough there to hammer home the fact that nobody actually saw Combs there. Nobody actually testified that he either threw the Molotov cocktail into the Porsche, which I'm not sure anyone thinks he did, or directed someone to actually do that. You know, this is a case where you might see someone get immunity and come in and testify that they were the one responsible for the arson. That could still come down the road. But the good thing for the government, let's say that there isn't enough to prove the arson. There are many other acts alleged in count one, that racketeering count, that the government could still prove and still meet its burden when it comes to racketeering. They don't have to prove all of the allegations they put in that indictment. They just have to show that there was a pattern of criminal activity. So I think that they can show the drug distribution. I think they can show the forced labor, the sex trafficking, the bribery. If they don't nail this arson, that's not fatal to count one. And as we've said, they look pretty good on counts 2 and 3.
Right. This is really helpful, William. You know, if you don't mind, I think you'd be a great professor someday. Not that you have the time for it, you're so busy, but someday you'd be tremendous. Take us to school, if you would. I'm sure people are asking you this question, and probably have for a long time. When they try to understand the crime of racketeering, and here in Diddy's case, it can be confusing, I think, because people are used to seeing this as a businessman, many business ventures. What are we talking about here? Would you kind of very simply tell us how you would explain to anyone interested in the case what prosecutors are trying to show with that count number 1, the racketeering conspiracy?
Yeah, so RICO was developed many years ago to go after organized crime. And the reason Congress passed the law was because you had these leaders of organized criminal organizations that weren't actually engaged in the crimes on the street, but they were directing it, they were leading it, they were managing it. And so they needed to put something together that allowed the leaders of these organizations to be held accountable. And so as simply as I can put it, what the government is alleging here is that Sean Combs was the leader of this organization, and some evidence came in over the past few days to support that. And he's a leader of an organization in which there's a pattern of criminal activity. There has to be at least 2 acts that occurred over a 10-year period, and there's a list of 35 different types of offenses under the federal criminal code that are eligible to be considered acts under RICO. That would include kidnapping, forced labor, sex trafficking, drug distribution, arson, and many others. And so the government has alleged 6 or 7 of those acts within count 1 of the indictment, and they're alleging that Mr. Combs was responsible for overseeing that, and of course that those acts involved interstate commerce as well. So they're doing a good job so far. There's a long way to go, but that's in a nutshell what racketeering is.
William, thank you. That's so helpful. And it makes so much sense when we think about what you were telling us this morning about how, look, they may not have proven this arson. And if not, that's okay. You know, it can be something they argue and close. But like you said, there are many opportunities, 35 of them to be exact, under that statute to try to go for. And here we know that they noted several in their indictment with him. We'll see what they continue to present. This case far from over. Your analysis has been outstanding. We want more from you, William Ehlenfeld. Stand by, kindly, please. And my friends, if you want to hear more from the AI technology and the court transcript, we've got you covered today. Coming up in our 10 o'clock hour this morning, we're going to have more of Kid Cudi's testimony for you. So you're going to hear a lot more about the break-in, he says, that happened at his house in Los Angeles. He said his dog was locked in the bathroom. You'll hear all of that later this morning here on Court TV. Next here, though, on opening statements, we're going through the exhibits together. Look at these. These are some of the photos the jury has been looking at. And this case goes far beyond the baby oil. Plus,
is this your profile on fatlife.com?
Yes, sir.
And what is that last video that you posted?
Of me and an ex-boyfriend.
this guy, Jordan Henning, he was asked about his FetLife account in court. Yeah, FetLife, that is a thing, and apparently the prosecution got in some information about his fetishes, as they said that The things that he liked to do on the website were the things he accused his wife of doing to him. We'll be right back.
Lots of empty bottles, empty Gatorade bottles, empty liquor bottles, and often baby oil.
Where did you see baby oil?
On the table, on the floor, on the bed, around the room.
He mentioned that when we were out of the country, that Scott's car would be blown up. He wanted his friends to be there to see it.
While you were employed by Mr. Combs, did you ever observe him using drugs?
Yes.
What kinds of drugs?
Weed, ketamine, cocaine, Molly, E.
How frequently did Mr. Combs do drugs, in your observation?
I would say every day.
Did he do drugs during the day?
He would take Percocets throughout the day.
Testimony's been explosive in Diddy's federal trial. Evidence presented against the music mogul, including drugs shaped like the face of a former president, are what's trending in true crime. Jurors seeing photos of what was collected during that federal raid of Diddy's Miami home. In these pictures, you can see drugs, guns, lots of baby oil. We know he liked that. Sex toys and high heels. And this is just to name a few of the things. These things were gathered from Diddy's Star Island residence back in March of last year. And more photos of Cassie Ventura with friends were also seen by the jury. There's one particular, look at this one, with rapper French Montana. Look at her hair. Prosecutors say that her hair was purposely styled that way to cover a facial injury that had happened to her eye. That was something that came up with Cassie when she testified. And we've seen those terrible pictures of her eye being split open, or the brow area of her eye, I should say. She said because of Diddy beating her. We've seen the beating video too. So this morning, when we think about all the exhibits that are in so far, there are more to come. What's the most shocking piece of evidence so far that we've seen come in against Diddy? Or the thing we've heard, doesn't have to be necessarily a photograph, but what stuns you the most? Hit us up on social media, let us know. Right now, let's bring in our power panel. We want to ask them. Still with me, former United States Attorney William Ehlenfeld, and want to welcome in the former co-host of the Hot 97 Morning Show, Lisa G. All right, Lisa, start us off, please. The most stunning thing to you that you've seen or heard in this case?
That's a great question, Julie, because everything has been shocking to me. I've known P. Diddy, Sean Combs for decades, I guess 30 years now. And when I see all this evidence, I go, how did he have time to have this second life? He was running a huge business. And so every little bit of detail has been shocking to me. It's getting to the point where I'm going online and looking at pictures and going like, oh my God, what am I going to see today? Everything from, the baby oil to the burned sports car to the black eye, fat lips. Every little detail has been shocking to me. And so I keep thinking, wow, what are the jurors thinking? They're regular people, they're not attorneys. And so I'm just wondering if all the different layers are adding up in their minds for them to say, wow, he's guilty.
Excellent points, Lisa. Yeah, I'm with you. There's so much to think about here. It's hard. It really is. William, you've been in practice for so many years. You've seen so much. I hope you write a book someday. You should. What is the thing that maybe shocks you the most, if there is anything?
So, like Lisa G said, the pictures of the Porsche automobile, to me, is something that people don't typically see. The average person might see baby oil, might see a gun, they might see prescription pill bottles, but to see evidence that a Molotov cocktail was thrown through the roof of a Porsche automobile is something that most of us don't ever see. And then I would also say collectively, all of this evidence is very powerful for the government. So I'm not shocked that SDNY has all this lined up and ready to go, but the guns are helpful because it shows that he used force and intimidation to keep people like Cassie Ventura in line. The drugs are consistent with the racketeering count and all the drug use and distribution. Just the overall, the freak-off supplies, all of those pictures corroborate what Cassie and others have said. So it's very powerful. And I think having the guns in the courtroom is also very helpful to the government. Not everyone on that jury owns a gun. And so to be able to see that live and in person in the courtroom is also going to be very helpful for the government's case.
Oh, that's a really great point. William, a follow-up on that, please. When you're prosecuting cases, or defending them, and let's say you want to show jurors a firearm for whatever reason, what considerations do you have to make sure you work through when you think about your presentation, how close you're going to get, things like that, so as not to put off any members of the jury who might be by just the sight of the firearm?
You have to be careful. And so the government used an agent yesterday to testify about the gun and to actually have it and hold it. And they have to do it in such a way that obviously it's not pointing at the jury. And I'm sure it had some sort of a locking mechanism on it to make it clear to the jury that no one was going to be harmed by these. But just actually having it in the courtroom and not just having photographs is a much more powerful way to present the evidence. And so I'm not surprised that the government did it that way. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick on the drug distribution piece, the pill bottles, I think, are also interesting because some of those were prescribed and some of those were illicit drugs. And if I were a doctor who was prescribing to Sean Combs, I'd be a little bit nervous that the government might be coming after me next because I'm not sure that prescribing was proper. But all of it is very interesting to me. It's going to be very helpful to the government. And I think they scored a lot of points by showing those pictures and bringing that evidence into the courtroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely, William. Excellent points. Lisa G., let me go back to you, please. Being someone who's known Diddy for many, many years, he'd come on your show so many times. When he would be on air versus when he would be off air, was there any difference? I'm so curious, as you've worked with so many different personalities and artists, and it's always neat to hear who's really that guy or that woman. What would you say was the case with Diddy?
The same. He would come into the room and it would be like a tornado was following him. He had all this, what I called a negative energy cycle around him like this. And so that has not changed. And I've seen him throughout the years where, yeah, maybe he's a little calmer and very friendly. He's very personable, always taking pictures. So when I'm hearing all this evidence, I'm just in shock that he even had the time to do all this. And also, I felt one of the most compelling, days of testimony was with her mother on the stand, where he allegedly tried to blackmail her about the sex tapes, releasing the sex tapes. So when I heard that, I thought, oh, wow, he's done. This is a bad one against him.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm with you. Lisa, thank you so much for reminding us of that. I think that, for me, if I had to weigh in, would be the most shocking thing. Messing with Cassie's mom and dad, and these people, who have nothing to do with her relationship with Diddy. And for anybody who missed it, basically the testimony from Regina Ventura was that Diddy goes to her, says, you owe me $20,000 because of the money I spent on your daughter. Pay up or else I'll release these sex tapes of your child. And she and her husband took out a home equity loan to pay it. And then after it was wire transferred through Diddy's bookkeeper, she said it was returned days later. William, I want you to make the final point for us in terms of what, if any, predicate crimes for the racketeering conspiracy might we have there?
Your question is as to what predicate crimes still need to be proven?
Does Cassie's mom's testimony help establish blackmail or extortion or things that would help support count one?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a big piece of the racketeering count is the bribery, the force, the intimidation, and that is a key piece to it. I think the government's going to hammer that home when they do their closing arguments. And I think you're going to see more of that. And the other thing that we haven't heard much of is what they found on the computers, and the cell phones, and all of the forensic analysis of those devices. I think there are some smoking guns to come from the government in the week to come.
Oh, most definitely. Well, I can't wait to have you both back. Hopefully next week, if you're free to talk more about the developments as this case continues progressing. William Ehlenfeld, Lisa G., thank you both so much. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. And still to come here on Opening Statements, here's what we've got.
Not only were you having extramarital relationships, you want to claim that she was abusive to you in a sexual way as well, right?
There was one instance, yes.
The man convicted of killing his military wife, Ashley Henning, he's seeking to get his sentence reduced, and he gets denied. We'll talk about it. Plus, how will the prosecution's case in the trial against defendant Karen Reed end? Will we see testimony from a crash reconstructionist? We're bringing in a very well-known case reconstruction expert. Can you guess who it is? Stay with us. Welcome back. This morning, we're shining the spotlight on the case that involved a military couple. One of them convicted of killing the other one. Jordan Henning attempted to get his sentence reduced for the killing of his wife, Ashley. And we brought you this trial here on Court TV. You may remember the branding of it was the military wife shooting case. Ring cameras captured the couple arguing the night of Ashley's birthday party. And then Jordan got a gun and shot her several times. That video gives me chills every single time. How about you? Prosecutors went after murder. Let's not forget that. It was manslaughter that the jury, though, found him guilty of. They did not find him guilty of murder, manslaughter. And so he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, and he made a petition to the court to have that 20-year sentence reduced because there's a law in Kentucky that allows victims of domestic violence to serve a lesser sentence when they kill their abusers. The judge didn't buy it.
Everybody has issues in any relationship, marriage or otherwise. Could there be yelling? Could there be screaming? Could there be, taking something and throwing it up against the wall? Okay, that is not physical abuse or violence. Now, it could go to the level of possibly infliction of this fear of imminent, but it must be imminent. But to even believe that, I've got to believe you, and sir, I don't believe you at all. I just don't believe. Easy, folks, easy. There's nobody here. There's no jury. I do not find, by preponderance of the evidence, that any of the testimony, any of the documentation, any reasonable inferences that I can draw from that leads me to make a factual finding that you were a victim of domestic violence.
Did you hear that applause? I told you there was a round of applause in the courtroom. And this time around in this hearing, the Commonwealth of Kentucky put Jordan Henning on the spot regarding his own behavior on adult websites during his marriage to Ashley. So let's talk about these things. Let's talk first about the judge's ruling, and then we'll get into things that didn't come into the trial but came in at this hearing. Let's bring in retired Air Force JAG officer Sally Stenton. Sally, good morning. You've been following this case for us from the start, giving us such great legal analysis as you've done both court-martials and tried cases in our civilian court system here in America. And with this one, I know that this case, that video boiled your blood from the outset. What did you think yesterday when the judge made that ruling and the courtroom applauded?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me, Julie. It was appalling to listen to him try and get his minimal sentence that he got for manslaughter instead of murder reduced even to less for saying that he was an abused husband. I remember, especially after hearing that it had been confirmed that he had this alternative lifestyle where he was into fetish, which we're not judging his lifestyle, but that he was into S&M and bondage. And remember him testifying how she had abused him and hurt him, tied him to the bed one time. It just really, it made me nauseous. And I was really glad to hear that round of applause.
Right. Sally, yes, and I'm so glad you said that. Nobody's judging his lifestyle. And for anybody who wants some clarity on why this came in, Sally, as you know, prosecutors weren't able to get it in the trial, but the judge did allow them to speak to it in this hearing because it was refuting the things he was alleging that Ashley did to him. He was alleging certain abusive behaviors on the stand. We all remember he was a big crybaby. He was crying and painting the picture that she was the abuser and did these things to him, where when everybody dug deep, they saw these were things that he would say he was into and that he wanted on his FetLife account. We've got a clip pertaining to that where he's questioned about it during the hearing this week. Let's watch.
These specific acts that he claimed to be abusive by Ashley are things that he lists on this website. I'll introduce those to the court here in a minute. How so? Specifically, the acts that he claimed were abuse are acts that he lists and shows in the video and in photos from his postings that are the things that he is into.
Okay, so that was the prosecutor, not Henning himself, obviously speaking, but that was the prosecutor convincing the court of why these things should come in. Sally, your thoughts on that when we think about this guy tried to paint himself as the victim and allege that his wife did things to him that she did not do, but things that he was asking for on his FetLife account.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that I'm not sure why the prosecution, after he testified, didn't try and get that stuff in rebuttal, because he testified how she would grab his manhood, how she abused him, how she tied him up, and he begged her to stop. And if they had knowledge of this FetLife account and that he was into this sort of stuff, I think after he testified, they should have brought that in on rebuttal.
Brilliant point, my friend. Brilliant point. Yes. And that's something I wondered about. We learned about it in talking with Ashley Henning's cousin, who also serves in our military. Wonderful man. He's been on the show a few times, and he was wondering why didn't it come in? And I'm wondering, did these prosecutors not know about it? There could have been something, Sally, as you know, done in chambers or at sidebar that we just weren't privy to regarding arguments about it. But there we have it. So he's off to prison. And Sally, one last question for you, please. Ashley Henning, posthumously promoted to Master Sergeant in the military. What does that mean? That kind of a rank?
I think it's well deserved. She was a wonderful soldier, a wonderful woman, a wonderful mother, and it just speaks to her character and her service to our nation. This weekend is Memorial Day, and I think it's so fitting that he should get the full sentence and that she should be posthumously promoted to a higher rank. And it happens on this very special weekend where we honor our service members that have died for our nation. And I think it's wonderful for her family and for her children.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, Sally. Perhaps this will be an extra special weekend for them. I know it's often, a very tough weekend for you, when losing your brothers and sisters in arms, and although she wasn't killed in battle, this is someone who did great things for our country, as you did, my friend, and so our thanks and hearts go out to you and everyone who serves in our military, past and present. Sally Stenton, we'll look forward to having you back soon. Take good care.
Thank you, Julie.
And you're going to see more of Jordan Henning's hearing today coming up on Court TV Live. We're going to play it for you in our next hour. Still ahead here on Opening Statements, the prosecution's case coming to a close. How might they put a punctuation on the prosecution of Karen Read? Well, maybe with an accident reconstruction expert. We're bringing in arguably the very best Can you guess who our next guest is? He joins us live after the break.
The only way he could get this kind of an injury was to fall backwards, hit the back of his head, and then the resulting, energy forces going into his brain, into his base of his skull. His injuries were very substantial, and it's more probable than not that at some point he quickly became unconscious and was unable to do functional activities.
Now for what's tipping the scales in the trial of defendant Karen Reed. As we're heading closer toward the conclusion of the Commonwealth's case, it got us wondering in our Court TV newsroom, what would be the perfect punctuation to the prosecution's case in chief? Could it be an accident reconstruction expert? We think there may be a new expert brought in this year. Of course, last year, you may recall, crash expert Joe Paul, this man here from the Massachusetts State Police, testifying that John O'Keefe's injuries and the evidence recovered indicate a pedestrian strike. He stated that in the span of 10 seconds, Karen Reed's SUV went from 0 to 24 miles per hour in reverse. Now, will we hear something similar from a brand new expert in this trial? What could be the most convincing way to present this testimony? We're bringing in the very best crime scene reconstruction expert and the breakout star witness of the Alec Murdaugh case, Dr. Kenny Kinsey, the head of Kenny Kinsey and Associates. He's in a private consulting work now, travels around an expert all around the country. Great to have you on the show, Dr. Kenny. It's been too long. So let's start with the first question. In case anybody's wondering, are you getting called as a witness in Karen Reed's case?
Thank you for having me, Miss Julie. Absolutely not. I don't know how those wires ever got crossed, but since the first trial, I have been receiving, let's say, messages, some good, some bad, from all over the country. I've never consulted, spoken to, or had any contact with anyone involved in this case.
There must be someone by the same name. There was a pretrial hearing where perhaps our courties will remember Hank Brennan was asking questions about someone reviewing a report from a Kenny Kinsey, or at least that's what it sounded like to us and our courties. So we assumed it was you. We thought it had to be you. You're the guy. So we're clearing it up right here this morning. It was not your report, perhaps just someone else with the same name as you. But you can still weigh in on this, and you've analyzed it heavily for us from the start, from way before trial number 1. So if you were to be brought in to present on behalf of the Commonwealth, how would you do it, Dr. Kinsey? What would you convey to the jury?
Well, first, Miss Julie, God bless that other Kenny Kinsey, because if he's getting the messages that I was getting, God bless him.
Oh,
I believe we have seen a little bit of what I concentrated on in my commentary early on before. We've seen them address the injuries. I found Dr. Wolf's testimony to be absolutely compelling, descriptive, and I believe his testimony showed that John O'Keefe's injuries were caused by transfer of energy. And if I was putting the final arrow in the target, per se, I would still like to see those pattern injuries on his arm addressed. I believe enough of it's been out there that that's what people want addressed. And that's certainly where some of the comments that I got came from. Like I said, it's just an opinion. I don't believe they're canine injuries. We're certainly going to see, hopefully we're going to see, I don't know certainly, but hopefully we're going to see someone address those. And hopefully someone has tried to replicate those injuries. And I think that will put that to bed.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great point, Dr. Kenny. When we think about John O'Keefe's head injury, which was terrible, and we heard so much about that this week. We heard the neurosurgeon telling us about coup, contra coup, where the head goes back, the blunt force trauma occurs, the hitting on the ground in the brain then goes forward and back, and the blood goes forward to the eyes, creating the appearance of what's called the raccoon eyes. We know that the head injury arguably is from the ground, if you believe the Commonwealth expert, or the defense is, we know what they're going to say. They're going to try to say this could have happened in a fight. But you make a great point. The arm seems to be where there's less acceptance. It seems to be where there's more debate. You mentioned experiments. How might you actually experiment to recreate those injuries without hurting anybody?
Well, I've done it 2 or 3 times in my career. It's not something you do every day, but one that I distinctly remember was caused by the end of a drive shaft. And we actually inked up a drive shaft, a rather large drive shaft, and tried to replicate those injuries and duplicate those injuries on skin. And I would like to add that I was taught in my training many, many years ago that contre-coup is like scrambling an egg without breaking the shell. And so when I was watching that testimony, I was seeing that over and over in my head, and I really understood it from the way the neurosurgeon explained it. So I think that was one big obstacle out of the way. And if we see a reconstructionist that can at least explain the mechanism and mechanics of that injury, I believe it's going to be a little bit different than last time.
It's really helpful. Dr. Kenny, ideally, I mean, in a perfect world, we know, look, governments don't always have all the resources that, private parties do to put forth demonstrations and things. What do you think would be best? What's the most ideal way to help the jury visualize what happened?
As I mentioned, and we haven't seen the other half yet. I expect some phenomenal witnesses there to also prove the defense's side. But like I said, it's awful powerful. Even with ink, we're not talking about injured skin. But if you can replicate, and I believe that to be a pattern injury on his arm, if they can replicate that or even get close, it's just like with tire evidence or sometimes footwear evidence. You can only give a class characteristic, but that class characteristic is strong. And just like with the tail light, and I thought it was really interesting because it's common in our world where you saw it could be caused by this tail light or another tail light like this. Well, we know we don't have another vehicle, at least in the major part of the investigation. So if they can replicate that injury from this vehicle, and even if they can only identify it as class characteristic, this vehicle or another vehicle like this one, I believe it goes a long way.
Right. Always brilliant analysis from you, Dr. Kenny Kinsey. I'd love to hear more. Please come back again soon. As we know, we're getting toward the end of the Commonwealth's case in chief. Enjoy the holiday weekend, Dr. Kinsey. Thank you so much. And we're going to be playing full unaired footage, thank you, of Jordan Henning's hearing coming up next on Court TV Live. Don't go away.